joined via Skype by Tony Badran. He is a research fellow at the Foundation for Defense of Democracies. He focuses on Syrian foreign policy as well as U.S. policy toward the country. Tony, thanks for joining us.
My pleasure.
Criticism aside, what does it show when elections are carried out in the middle of a civil war?
Well, I think the analysis that was provided in the report is accurate in that Bashar al-Assad wants to basically send a message both domestically and to his foreign allies as well as his foreign enemies that he is not going anywhere and that any movement forward will have to that he is not circumventable, that it will have to take him into consideration as a central part of any future arrangement, and that it will have to be on his terms, essentially. And in many cases, on a certain level, insofar as the United States has not taken any drastic action against him to alter this equation, he has every reason to believe that this is a right reading.
Well, what do you make of the fact that for the first time there were other names on the ballot other than Assad's?
I mean, it was a complete farce. I mean, if you just listen to these guys that were selected, handpicked, they were essentially saying that they were going to vote for Assad themselves, or that they were saying that maybe other people should vote for Assad as the most suitable candidate anyway. One of them had an interview with the Telegraph, and he just essentially said that. So it was really a charade. It wasn't serious. This was just it's almost like the old Soviet mind games and propaganda games, and it's really nothing more than that.
Some countries may or may not recognize the result of this election, but couldn't the same be said for other elections taking place right now, for example, in Egypt and Ukraine?
In terms of the legitimacy, the only difference, I suppose, in both countries is that the presidents in question are not bombarding the rest of the country to smithereens and have 160,000 dead people, toll on their hands. So I think that maybe should count as a distinctive marker.
What do you think happens next? You've said in recent weeks that you expect the violence to continue in Syria. Is there any reason to think that could change anytime soon?
No, and the basic equation doesn't change. I mean, even for Assad, for all his posturing, I mean, he still controls, maybe at best half of the country. And the rest is outside of his control. So in many respects, this is hollow. But what this situation does speak is really a condemnation of U.S. policy and its failure to 3 years on to actually bring its declared policy objective, the removal of Assad and his regime, into fruition. So I think as long as the United States does not take the necessary steps to achieve its declared objective in Syria, I think the current bloodshed is set to continue for many years.
Well, and as you mentioned, 3 years later and now another presidential election, does it appear that we could see him in place for the next 7 years?
Oh, I don't know. It's likely that he will be with us in the near term and well into the medium term probably. But it all really depends on what action the United States, whether it's this administration or 2 years, 3 years from now, whatever administration succeeds it, decides it's going to do in Syria, whether it's the level of support for the opposition or some measure of direct intervention short of boots on the ground, let's say strikes or targeted airstrikes or something of that nature. Once that happens, then this is a game changer because Assad's the balance of Assad's power on the ground is actually still tenuous. So it really depends on what the United States decides to do.